Cancelled.
Schweezy.
So this is an announcement I am not very happy with making. I watched Morbius last night on Netflix.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
And so, I made a rule because I think what Sony is doing with their Spider-Verse properties is disrespectful. I just think what they're doing is so disrespectful. And the fact that they're like, when they did Morbius, they're like, from the studio that brought you Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, I mean, technically you wrote the checks, but you're not the studio. Kevin Feige did that. A man who is so into comic books that he dedicates his whole entire life, and he gets the money for it, but he dedicates his life to making sure he makes some of these best movies ever. Like when he first started out, the first comic book movie, the first X-Men movie, he made sure people were reading the comics to make sure they understood the characters. When that fucking idiot who is, I can't remember his name, something Snyder, it's not Snack Snyder, no. Anyways, though, like he was like, no comic books on set, and he's like, no, people need to understand who these characters are, because if you're gonna play a character and it's based off something, it's nice to do a backup. I'll bet every person who's played a Marvel character has read up on the character, like they've read every comic on that character probably, or a majority of it for the most part, just to understand who that character is. And so, yeah, that's disrespectful. And I just think these Sony Spider-Verse movies, I'm kind of interested in the Madam Web movie, but I know it's going to be bad and stuff like that. Well, I made like a rule. I'm like, I'm not going to pay money to see these movies because I do not support Sony just taking so many good characters and just like honey-dicking it from Marvel Studios, because Marvel Studios is making great movies, stuff like that. But I don't know. So is me watching it on Netflix, is that a bad thing? Because I already paid for Netflix. I don't know if it's not like every time I watch it, they get paid or whatever, So I don't know about that. So yeah, I watched the movie. And before, probably people were like, I thought you already watched the movie. I'm like, well, if I said I did, I lied. I watched like 3 YouTube videos of people summarizing the entire movie. And I got the gist of it. I'm like, I don't want to watch this. But I also was like, I think I need to actually watch this for myself. Like, what if it's a good movie and these people just lied to me? You can't just be taking people's words if you can watch it. So yeah, I watched it. And you ever watch a movie and you don't give a shit what happens to any of the characters in said movie? That's what Morbius was like. Is this guy gonna die? Okay, I don't really give a shit. Because like, part of the movie is like, you're supposed to build up a character. Like, if you don't want a character to die and they do die, you want to feel bad about it. That's the whole point of this kind of like cinema and movies and television and stuff like that. I didn't give a shit. Like, Morbius could have died. I didn't give it. Milo, when they were kids, like Milo and Michael, Morbius, like when they were kids, there's a scene where like some kids start beating the shit out of Milo. I'm like, they could have just beat the shit out of Milo while he's a kid. I'm like, I wouldn't give a fuck. I'm like, I don't know this kid. I don't give a shit. Like, and he's like, he's a cripple. And you're like, couldn't you like make me feel bad for a kid who's a cripple? I'm like, you couldn't make me feel bad for a kid who's a cripple. Like, that's just bad shit. Like you did in this movie. Like, you made such a bad movie that I did not give a shit that a crippled kid got the shit beaten out of him on the street. I don't know how you did. I don't know how Sony could do that, but they did it, and that's fucking magic. Because if I saw in real life, and I don't even know, like, kids, like in the movie, the kids were like, oh, look at the cripple, let's beat the shit out of him. Like, when I was a kid, I was like, we're not gonna be mean to the crippled kid. My mom didn't raise me that well, but like she at least told me like, hey, the crippled kid, don't beat the shit out of him. I'm like, okay, I can live with that. Okay, Mom, I understand. And yeah, I've never beat up a crippled kid. One, because I also think it's an unfair fight. And actually, if I eat more, it could probably be a fair fight. Like, if I was 600 pounds and I fought a cripple, I think it would be at some points. I mean, if he could get some gravity on his side, I think he could beat me. Anyways, though, yeah, you just don't care for any, like, the love interest died, and you're like, who fucking cares? Shit like that. Like, who the hell cares? Or like, like, Milo's going, like, killing people for blood because he needs to eat it. And you're like, who the fuck cares about these people? I do not give a shit. And then I think about a lot of superhero movies. And one thing about superhero movies, I would say, or at least this style of movie, is the fact that the hero, like, you have to make the hero, like, a good character, like, even, like, a good person, but also, like, a well-written character. That's one thing. But the whole plot of the movie and what makes a good story is always based on the villain or antagonist of the story. That's why I think Batman, as the kids would call it, Batman is mid. But like then you have his like rogue gallery of fucking the Joker, Riddler, Ice Guy, Mr. Freeze, that's his name. Harley Quinn, you have those, and like those are great villains, and like you could create a great story just based off of that and stuff like that. But then we get to these Sony Spider-Verse movies, and what was supposed to be a Spider-Man villain is now like a hero / anti-hero. And then you have to like, okay, and who's the antagonist? Like, well, we don't want to bring Spider-Man in, so he's out. So you find the most random thing. Like now, Venom Let There Be Carnage, they just found Carnage, another Spider-Man villain. But then like this movie is like Morbius' best friend. I don't know a ton about Morbius. Like my comic knowledge is not that. But anyways, though, his friend Milo is the villain, and to think of a movie like Captain America: The Winter Soldier, where Bucky Barnes was Steve Rogers' best friend. And then you think about how Steve Rogers was frozen. He thought Bucky was dead. Then he was frozen in ice for like 70-some years or whatever, I think. Came back out, thought his whole world changed. Like, he found out Peggy Carter was just old and had dementia. And then it was like, oh, that's the last of my life here. And he's like, oh, my best friend Bucky is still young and is alive, but he's evil. And so you watch Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and you're thinking about how, like, that final fight scene, Bucky, I don't want to hurt you, you're my friend, but Bucky's so brainwashed, like, he can't control it or anything like that, and it's super kind of rough there to watch that. So, like, that's what they were going for with Morbius, but no, they didn't build it up to that shit at all. Because, like, Morbius takes this, like, bat DNA thing, because it was, like, these blood bats that live off blood and stuff like that, and they didn't even explain that very well, to be honest with you, how he got the powers. It's like, well, these bats, they are able to drink blood, but there's something in their bodies that allows them to eat blood. And so, therefore, if I do take it, I can survive. And then Morbius is like, clearly he's like, Morbius took it, it's like it's a curse. He has synthetic blood that he can take, and then obviously, the more that runs out, he needs real blood because it's only going to last him for so long. And I'm like, that's a good subplot. They could have made a movie at that. But they're like, no. They're like, no, we're not going to care. They didn't even come back to that at the end of the movie. And then Milo's just automatically killing people. Like, that's all he's doing, killing people. Because he takes it, too. And after Morbius warned him not to. And, like, you could have explained that better. I'm like, buddy, this is not the answer. This is a curse on me. A good friend would have been like, do not take this. This is bad. This is not good. This is rough, buddy.
That's rough, buddy.
But Milo's like, no, I want to be cured. I want to be cured. Then he takes it. He's like, I have a gift now. I'm going to kill people. Fuck you. And stuff like that. And, like, that's the fucking movie. You're like, you don't care about the villain. You don't care about the hero. You just don't care about anyone in this movie. That's the thing. It was not Morbin time. Like, they're like, it's Morbin time. And the fact that, and I want to, the last topic before I get into the last topic, I'll talk about this. It's just so disrespectful to some of these properties. Like, very creative, very amazing writers created the character of Michael Morbius. And Michael Morbius is supposed to be a guy with a disease. And they didn't even explain what disease he fucking had in the movie. That's another thing. And then he basically does this experimentation with vampire, or not vampire blood, but like bat something DNA, and becomes Morbius, like the villain and stuff like that. And he has to eat blood and stuff like that. And he's cured, but he has this disease. It's just like it's a very good thing. And then Sony just fucks that shit up. They just completely fuck that shit up. It's just so disrespectful to the source material. And what's even more worse, the one thing I'm going to end on, is the two post-credit scenes. The first one is Michael Keaton, after Spider-Man No Way Home, gets transported into fucking the Morbius Venom universe. And then he's in prison, and he's like, hey, I'm not supposed to be here. Check my paperwork. They're like, oh, yeah, I don't know why you're in prison. And then no one just questions it. He's like, now he's out. And then he basically finds Morbius on a random highway, and it's like those voice AI things that if you watch any of my TikToks, you'll see, gosh, it's Daddy Goofy. This full episode of TheSchweezy is out now. Like that. They basically used that with Michael Keaton's voice to string it together. It was weird too. And so any redemption arc they did with Vulture in the MCU, and they could have made like a good Sinister Six in the MCU, and they just fucked it up to shit. It was so disrespectful for all the good writers at Marvel. It was disrespectful to anything Sony's doing. It's just a disrespectful movie. And notice how I think Jared Leto was a prick. I'm not said anything. I thought everyone who acted in that movie was great. It was just a horrible story, and it just disrespected the character. I thought, for once, I think Jared Leto actually did act okay. The guy from Milo, the guy Doctor Who, he did okay. The chick, she did okay. Shit like that. And, it's just so disrespectful to Marvel. It was so disrespectful to the creator of Michael Morbius. It's disrespectful to Marvel Studios. Stan Lee had to have turned in his grave. I know he's probably seen worse Marvel shit than that. But it's just so disrespectful. Sony, just sell the rights to the Spider-Man properties back to Marvel. Just make it a big price tag. Just be like, look, I think we can't do this, but we're either that or we're just going to keep making this god-awful shit. So Marvel just gets it back or whatever and do better. So please do that, Sony. Please do that, because you know what?
And I really like that.
I will. Hey there, you just checked out a highlight from Cancel Schweezy. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you learned something and that you are now a smarter individual. Just so you know, we have full episodes and other many highlights available now. Click here for the next best thing that you can go check out as well. And make sure you press that subscribe button and press that notification bell. That way you get updated anytime we make a new post or anytime that we make a new highlight or full episode. So thank you, honk if you love butt drugs, and stay awesome.